Hi, welcome to another episode of the Weld.com podcast, where each week we explore different pathways available in the welding industry. I'm your host, Beau Wigington, and this week we head back to FabTech to visit the Walter Surface Technologies booth to talk to Ryan Boyd about keeping yourself safe when it comes to using power tools and the type of technologies that they're implementing to cut down on vibrations. We dive in right now. Welcome back, everybody. We are at FabTech for another special edition of the podcast. I'm here at the Walter Surface booth, and I'm here. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience, just in case they have never seen you at the show and heard everything you do?
And presumably most of them haven't. So, my name's Ryan Boyd. I've been with Walter for about 10 years now, in a variety of different places in the company, different roles. And started in marketing, moved around, did a lot of time in product development, specifically around power tools.
Okay.
And now I'm working on a sort of new venture for Walter, where we're diving more into the realm of robotic material removal, sort of like what's coming next in the future of grinding and sanding metal.
You said you've been there for 10 years. That's quite a long time to be at a company. How did you first start working with Walter?
So I started working with Walter. I graduated university in 2014, and at the time, Walter was a family-owned business, and they had posted an ad for a really cool-sounding internship program, where it was like, hey, spend 3 months with the CEO of an international company kind of thing. I was like, oh, wow, they're out of Montreal. I recognized the logo. I applied. I just kept going after them, kind of let them know, like, I'm interested. And eventually I was selected for that and spent 3.5 months doing that. And when it concluded, they hired me on full-time in the marketing department in Canada.
As far as Walter, if people aren't familiar with the company, what all do you do?
So Walter Surface Technologies has been around for just about 75 years, and we really focus on metalworking consumable products, so mostly abrasives and industrial cutting tools. Not so much cutting tools for CNC machining, but really for, we'll say, manual or semi-automatic drilling applications, like drill bits, annular cutters, reamers, mostly handheld tools.
So over the past 10 years, what's it like working at Walter?
Well, it's been pretty fast-paced, to be honest with you. It was a very cool company to start working at, and then there was a change of ownership when the third generation didn't want to kind of pick up the business. So I sold to a private equity firm, and they said, hey, we believe in what Walter's doing. Let's keep doing it. And since then, which was about 6 years ago, we started adding a lot of companies by, really that match and surround that core customer, kind of the welder and then the fabricator. And so it's been a lot of change, a lot of evolution, but pretty fast-paced. And it's been, quite frankly, pretty stimulating in that regard. Yeah, it's been exciting.
Always learning new things, I bet.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, so we talked a little bit about the cutting and abrasives and everything, but you make a lot of things. We've been looking through, what all does Walter make?
Well, we make a lot. And we work with strategic partners for certain things, but we've got a welding helmet on the table. We've got grinders up on the wall. We've got some grinder accessories. We've got wire brushes right beside you. We can go to the other side. We've got, a whole bunch of cutting tools, mag drills. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff.
Mag drills?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty sweet, yeah. And you know what? We've expanded that line of products over the last 5-6 years, and I had a lot of involvement in that about 5-6 years ago as well. So it's really diverse, but at the end of the day, it all kind of fits in the same, let's say, metal fabrication shop. Generally, like any kind of job shop, we've got stuff that they can use everywhere. That's the goal anyway.
Well, when using this stuff, welding is not the most, it can be dangerous. There's danger to watch out for, but it's all about being cautious with what you do. So with your tools, how do you train people to use them correctly? Because that's how injuries happen, not using it right.
Yeah, and I mean, it is almost like anything, right? If you don't think it through, you can use anything and end up hurting yourself. But also when you have a wheel that's spinning at 10,000, 11,000 RPM on the end of an angle grinder, well, okay, now you've got a blade that can cut just about anything.
Yeah.
The reality is it's not like a, hey, make sure you read the manual kind of thing, but there's a couple of key signs to just look for when you're using power tools of knowing, okay, what I'm about to do is, even if I haven't done it before, it's safe. The first one, and this is one we see unfortunately still in a lot of shops, is guys maybe being a little too comfortable and not using a guard.
Yeah. We see it all the time, man.
I get it, right? Sometimes you can't see what you're trying to cut, or you need a little bit more visibility, and a good quality product should not break under proper operating conditions But you and me, maybe we bend a little bit more one way, or maybe we put a little bit too much weight, or we're not really paying attention. And, a wheel can catch, it can bind on something, it can get pinched. And the risk of something potentially bad happening is always there. But at least if you have a guard, one, you're protecting your body, right? Like, so that's kind of the first thing. After that, it can be pretty, honestly, after that, it's pretty simple. Like, make sure you pick a wheel and a grinder that have, we'll call it matching speed pairings. Yeah. So this tool spins at 10,000 RPM, just picking a number. If the wheel is rated above 10,000 RPM, you're good to go. But if you're putting a wheel that's rated 6,000 RPM on a tool that's going to spin at 10,000 RPM, exactly, it's got a huge chance of, especially once you make contact with a workpiece, of blowing up in your face.
Yeah, and sometimes I might be like, maybe I could do some grinding with this cutting disc. Is that a good idea?
That's definitely not a good idea, Beau. There's certain wheels out there that would be thicker than your traditional cutoff wheel, like your 045, let's say inches thick. That would be your traditional cutting wheel. There's others that are built more like a grinding wheel, but in that sort of 1/8 of an inch thick range. But they'll generally have more reinforcements, which is typical of a Type 27 depressed center grinding wheel. And they'd be rated as like a combination wheel, not really for heavy grinding after cutting, but they would be rated for safe cutting and then let's say light deburring of a piece of metal. There you're fine, but you got to make sure you pick a wheel that actually is built for that. Because otherwise, cutting wheels are designed to be as thin as possible to help you cut as fast as possible. And if you start applying pressure on the side or on an angle, well, now all of a sudden you have a naturally flexible-ish wheel because it's so thin, not designed to be used like that. So that would be another area where you might see, that's starting to crack, boom.
Yeah.
And to be avoided, obviously.
Yeah. Like cutting discs in general, like just be safe.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And they can be definitely intimidating. Especially for people who haven't grinded with angle grinders before. But the reality is, you check your speed, you make sure the safety accessories are there. Wear a face shield. It's ideal, right? To protect yourself.
It's a good practice.
Yeah, you only get two eyes.
Yeah, safety squints don't really match up to a cutting disc.
Yeah, your eyelid maybe works for dust, but not for a piece of abrasive flying off at you.
Well, there's other things out there that people want to watch out for. Like myself, I have really bad carpal tunnel in both hands, and like using a grinder, like it kills me. Like what do you all do to try to like cut down on it, like make it easier so you're not just like wearing yourself out every single time you pick up a grinder?
That's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, working with abrasives to a certain extent is going to create vibration, right? But we have a few things that we've built into some of our grinders, as well as some of our grinding wheels that are specifically designed to help reduce the amount of vibration. Obviously, like number one from a person's perspective is like wearing a good set of gloves, right? That's going to have some cushion in it that'll absorb a lot of the vibration. That'd be just kind of top way to help yourself out the most, we'll say. On some of our angle grinders, not all the way through the range, but on some of our angle grinders, we've also got what we call a stabilizer built into it. So this is like an integrated back flange into the grinder. Because typically you're mounting a back flange, the wheel, and then the clamping nut. On some of our grinders, we have an integrated back flange, which basically has, we'll call it little marbles included in it, and they naturally will move and adjust themselves as you're working to kind of offset the direction of vibration. And we've actually got a pretty cool video. It's a short one on YouTube. It's like a minute long, highlighting some of these safety features. But you can see it. We put two grinders side by side with like a little screw-in glass case with some, plastic chunks and stuff in it. And you can see when you run them at speed, the difference. Like, it's a significant difference in the amount of vibration when you're not even working.
Yeah.
So that's one. It just reduces the amount of vibration. Honestly, like some will say lower end angle grinders will come with just like a really rigid handle. Ours has some built-in flexibility into it, so it really is it's an anti-vibration handle, we call it. Doesn't eliminate it completely, but it really absorbs a lot of the vibration. So there's already two features in the grinder that are going to make it a little easier for the operator. And depending on the wheel, funny enough, depending on the wheel you mount on a grinder, some may have a very, very hard bond. So they're just going to be naturally a very hard and rough wheel. Okay. Others can be constructed with like a softer bond to release abrasive grain a little bit more quickly, and they will just physically feel softer. And we have one cool wheel that we launched a few years ago called the Excavator Comfort Max. And within that within the Type 27 wheel itself, it's got actually like a rubber disc right up at the built into it. You can see it if you're looking at the wheel in person, but it's actually got a little rubber disc about 1/16 of an inch thick that is right up at the hub where you would mount it to a grinder. So that is also like a vibration absorbing, let's say, accessory to the tool or to the wheel. And so we
many
do as much as we
accessories.
can. But at the end of the day, it's still working with tools in your hands. So there's going to be a little bit, but we mitigate what we can.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our trusted partners. Tune in to 3M Abrasive's Clash of the Grinders, Season 2 Student Edition, out now over on 3M Abrasive's YouTube channel. This week is the finale of the competition. Tune in to see which of our 3 competitors will take first place and the $15,000 grand prize. Tune in to find out who wins over on 3M Abrasive's YouTube channel. Need a portable machine that can handle stick and TIG welding with ease? Look no further than the Lincoln Electric Sprinter 180. With advanced features like high-frequency TIG start, pulse TIG mode, and dual voltage input, the Sprinter 180 gives you the versatility and control to tackle any project. Check it out for yourself at LincolnElectric.com. And we're back, everybody. So we were talking about so all of these things that you're putting into these tools, are these things people are asking for, or are these just things that you're trying to put in there to differentiate yourself?
It's a little bit of both. I wouldn't say that people necessarily ask for something so specific as, hey, can you build in an anti-vibration, back flange? But it's really us listening to feedback from our customers, people who've been longtime Walter tool users, taking a look at, hey, what technologies are coming out for hand tools and how can we integrate that into our own offering. It's honestly, it's a little bit of both, but how it ultimately gets to the tool can come from a variety of different ways.
All right.
But it's really just about listening, listening to guys, shit,
You gotta
the
listen to
vibration
your
so much. And
customers,
it's like,
man.
all right, everybody seems to say that. How can we kind of work to reduce the vibration? And then, ultimately it turns into something we can try and differentiate ourselves with.
What goes into designing a new tool? Like, how do you, are you trying to stick with a theme, or are you always kind of trying to be like, we gotta stay with the times?
Kind of a little bit of both. So if you take a look at, let's say, our angle grinder range, and there's companies that have, hundreds and hundreds of tools, battery platforms, or whatever. And, Walter's core customers has always really been the shop itself, right? So we're looking for something that's going to give you the highest consistent output power over the life of a day or over the life of the tool. So we do bind ourselves a little bit. Like, we're not interested in going and launching tons and tons of battery powered tools, for instance. So we kind of keep ourselves focused on the real industrial applications for start. Yeah, just something you're going to get consistent power out of for as long as you're using it. Some of the other stuff is, listening to our customers consistently. We do try to spend a ton of time at end user customers. It's maybe a little different that in itself than other companies in our industry, or maybe they spend a little bit more time at let's say the distribution level.
Yeah.
But we really try to listen to the end user because it helps us develop tools better to differentiate ourselves, but also really help them. And then there's a little bit of, okay, well, on the production side of power tools, right, you're producing molds, you're actually assembling the tools. So you need to have a little bit of volume, I guess, and you want to try and keep, let's say, a theme of color or tool design across the family.
You need to know that it's one of yours.
Exactly.
Right?
You want someone to look at it and say, oh yeah, it's a Walter grinder. But at the end of the day, if we are hearing from people, the barrel is a little bit too big on your barrel style grinder, all right, we might take that into account. And for the next body generation, okay, we can try and introduce rat tails or slim out the design or something like that. And then there's also a matter of keeping up with the times as well, right? Like, we don't manufacture motors ourselves, but when we know there's new motor technology coming out, like, let's say, brushless motors versus brushed motors, well, now it's a matter of, all right, how do we integrate that technology into our tools? And then what flexibility does it give us from the design perspective? Because, maybe the form factor of that motor is much smaller. The requirements for service and stuff are much less. Well, now we can play with the weight of the tool. We can play with the body size of the tool. And that as well can help the operator in the end, because it's like, wow, this is a lot more ergonomics, a lot easier to hold. And the power output at the end of the day also becomes a lot higher.
Well, you said you talk to your customers a lot. One, how do your customers reach out to you? Is it like just having reps, like a sales rep, or is it like they just reach out to the website and then someone's like, hey,
it's a bit of both. So, honestly, in North America, Walter's got about 200. We've got about 100 directly employed Walter territory managers around North America.
That's a lot of territory.
But it's always been our approach, is really end user first, focus on the customer. Like, our stuff's not cheap. We know that. but we can stand behind the price because we can show you the quality and the benefits that it's going to bring. So we spend a lot of time with the end user, and we've got about another 100, affiliated sales agents as well that are out there visiting end users at the same time. So we do get a lot of feedback directly from the field, but it's also super easy to reach out to Walt on our website. Like, we've got a big marketing team. We spend a lot of time looking at communications, requests, ideas that come in. And quite frankly, depending on what it's about, it's not just fielded by, we'll call it a more junior employee who doesn't really have experience as much, but it may get fed up to our more senior product managers, our territory managers, myself, depending on the topic. So we really make a point of listening to the feedback wherever it comes from. Definitely most of it is from the field, but it's super easy to contact us from the website as well.
What have been some of the craziest requests you all have had for tools or designs or anything like that?
Man, okay, you're catching me a little off guard
I know
with
this wasn't a predetermined question, but I just want to know for myself.
It's usually questions about developing a tool for a very specific application.
Yeah, where one person can use it.
One person will use it, and they'll use like 5 of them a year. We recently had one where we were visiting a customer, and I mean, it was a legitimate request because we went to visit the customer, and then based on what they were producing, we understand why they were looking for a certain type of tool. But they were literally buying parts on eBay of this 60-year-old pneumatic sander that just was discontinued by like 3 companies in a row. And ultimately, they're like, "Can you build us something like this?" And I'm like, well, to be honest, and this thing was like, the body was cast, like it was not even plastic. This thing weighed like 30 pounds. But for their specific application, it worked really well. Now, ultimately, we couldn't develop that tool because there's a certain economics to it as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it literally ended up in us scouring all the manufacturers of other tools that we knew to try and find something that would fit them best. Even though we knew we weren't going to sell them a specific tool for that application, our goal was still to try and help the end user, because at the end of the day, they'll remember that. Maybe they don't buy the tool from us, but if we can get some abrasives, into their operation or into their process, well, they, benefit us at the end of the day.
Yeah, you just got to get a foot in the door, right?
Yeah.
I always like to wrap up our podcast with advice for people, and considering we've been talking so much about power tools,
yeah.
What would your advice be? I've never touched a power tool in my life. What things do I need to keep in mind?
Protect yourself, number one. Gloves, at least safety glasses, face shield if you can. It's just if you have access to it. But at the bare minimum, safety glasses. Be confident. At the end of the day,
that's a good one,
it can
though.
be scary for someone. I get it, right? That thing's moving pretty quick. And when we're training new employees, you can see sometimes those who've never touched power tools before. But just be confident. These tools are used every day across the globe, right? In manufacturing, from people who have a lot of experience and who don't. And, wheels aren't exploding every day.
No.
So it really just happens when we don't pay attention to what should be done and what, safety precautions should be respected. So be confident, wear the right PPE, make sure you match the abrasive speed to the tool with a higher rated speed, and you're good to go, to be honest. And if you can, talk to someone who has a little bit of experience, because maybe they'll guide you in better, don't come in with them like an axe. If it's a cutting wheel, let's say.
Yeah. Just got to finesse it.
That's it.
Act
and
like
you
you've
learn
been
a little
there
bit while you're
before.
using it. Yeah.
And you're in charge of that tool, not the other way around.
Exactly. Yeah, well, just remember that.
Well, I appreciate you chatting with me, telling me all about this stuff. If people want to learn more about Walter, where they go to see everything you guys got?
Oh, man. Well, today, obviously, it'd be at FabTech booth
right here.
W3660. It's actually pretty cool if you guys do want to pop by. Basically, every hour on the hour, we run a demo of different types of tools. Be it, our little robotic setup in the corner, or finishing demos, sanding disc desks, grinding wheels, drilling, demos with the different types of tools we have. And every time we do a demo, we do a draw. So you have a chance to win a prize of between $500 and $700. That's pretty sweet. And then at any other time, Walter.com. www.walter.com.
Hey.
Pretty
the
easy.
Old reliable.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
And now I got to go look around and see all this cool stuff you told me about.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I hope you got a big bag to take it all home.
Oh, I'll just have to ship another bag home, I think, from FabTech. It happens every year,
Yeah, this is the place to go for it.
Well, I hope you have a great rest of your show, and thanks again, man.
Thanks very much, Beau.
Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Weld.com podcast, and thank you, Walter, for inviting me to the booth to come have a conversation, and for all of the goodies as well. Ryan, next time I'm up in Canada, I'm definitely going to hit you up to come hang out. If you're looking for some new tools, abrasives, or even a new welding helmet, make sure you check out everything they got in the link down in the description. If you have a topic you'd like me to cover on the podcast, reach out to me on the Weld app at Beau did it, or shoot a DM over to our Instagram account, Weld.com. I appreciate everyone for tuning in each week, and I hope you're learning as much as I am. Until next time, we'll see you out there.